We had a man. It was not my patient. I was filling in for a nurse that was on vacation. And the home health aide said, if you see my car in front of the house, just walk in because the son is kind of crazy and he never comes out of the room. I said, okay. And he doesn't like the doorbell. I said, okay. So her car was there. So I walked in the front door and he has a gun pointed at the home health aide. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And he turns to me, points the gun at me, and he says, she said he's dying. If he dies, everybody's going to die. And I thought, your first instinct is to run. Your second one is leave no man behind. So I looked at him and I said, well, she's not a nurse, I am. So I made a big production of taking his vital signs and what have you. And he was gone. But I looked the son straight in the eye. I said, he's fine. Son goes, good. Drops puts the gun down and goes into his room and shuts the door. So I tell the home health aide, I said, run.
Yeah.
She said, what? I said, because he's dead and we're not coming back in this house till the police get here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Saved both of your lives.
Yeah. The synchronicity behind that. I was getting ready to ask you, have you ever had to do that with prisoners? And then you already were telling the story. I'm like, well, that's just not a coincidence.
But it also goes deeper because you come across these people that are so angry of their once violent life. But even when it comes down to the point of their own death, so have you ever seen that there was a breaking point where they had to shed the former self and prepare themselves for the new?
Absolutely. And I think when I first meet them on that level, and so they know that I'm not easily intimidated, then they're free to talk. The person who uses a lot of foul language or is a real tough exterior, for whatever reason it is, I seem to get along with those people very well. And as the disease progresses and I'm there consistently, then they start talking and then they start asking questions. And some of them will say, do you think God's going to forgive me? And so we have those questions a lot.
Right. So,
and yes, you see that where they transform into a different human being than what they were.
Right. And then for those that you have treated that were not religious, or let's just say they were atheists, just because we have the God notion planted, whether it be external or internal, do you ever see them falling back from their old ways like, well, I was atheist, but now I'm starting to wonder if there's something out there for me?
Some do, some don't.
Right. Yeah. And they still have I'm sure, well, I don't know. For the ones that don't, was it a tough transition, you think, for them?
That's kind of a hard question.
Right.
I would say for the majority of them, no. But for some of them, yes, it was very hard.
Right. And we truly don't know what really, happens once they're there in that space or that void. But I do like to think that someone is there to give them some sort of greeting and tell them, you know what, it was okay that you thought that way, but now we're here now, so we have to, go onward. But with that said, have you known someone to go cross over and come back?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Lamont, I have a story very similar to yours. I'll just call him Mr. G. And I was when I was 18, working in a convalescent hospital. We often change people because they're incontinent. They can't hold their bowel or their bladder. And every time I would change this man, he would always say, now he was by himself, he'd say, cover us up when you're done with us. And it got to be a joke with those of us that work there. And so I'd always say, okay, Mr. G, I'm going to cover you both up. And he'd always say, cover us up. So one night I went in there and he was gone. So I went and got the registered nurse and he came in and the guy was awake. I'm like, I swear he was gone.
Right.
He goes, well, he gave me all kinds of grief, this nurse. So I thought, okay. So later in that evening, Mr. G, I went to change him again and he was gone. So I called my coworker. I said, please, you make sure he's gone and you go tell the nurse because he already doesn't like me. Right. So sure enough, she says, yeah, he's not breathing. So she went and told him. And in those days, we had to call 911 when they passed. And so he comes in and Mr. G is gone. So he calls 911. And by the time they get there, Mr. G is awake again.
Oh, wow.
So I have a friend that's working in the emergency room at the hospital across the street from where we were, and they take him over there because they figure, well, we'll take him over there. So when he gets there, they pronounce it because he's gone.
Hmm.
And she said she walked by the gurney that he was on, and he opened his eyes and said, "We're cold. Will you cover us up? We're cold."
Oh,
And she
wow.
said she jumped about a foot. Anyway, this happened a few more times while he was in the emergency room. And then he sat bolt upright, waved at him and said goodbye, and died.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was he a um mentally like or a psych patient? Why would he refer to himself as a
No.
third person?
Cover us up when you're done with this. I don't know.
Right.
I truly think he had somebody that was there with him
Okay.
because he always said, cover us up.
Right.
He didn't say cover me up. He said, cover us up.
And you didn't think at that time to go, hey, where did you go? Because when I last checked you, you weren't here, sir.
I didn't think in those days to ask that.
Right.
That's interesting. Okay, that leads me to this question then. Um, were you ever next to a patient and they said, "You don't see this guy or woman right here?"
Many times. Many
Oh,
times.
Dad, tell us. Do tell.
please.
Well, as you say, we've had that person who says, I see Jesus.
Right.
Or we have the person who says, I see my husband or my wife. And so, like your mom, I usually tell them, then go talk to them.
Mhm.
Go be with them if that's what you want to do.
Right.
And yeah,
Um.
it happens often.
Oh, I bet it does.
Like, does it creep you out?
No, I have a friend. She's never been married. They kind of call her the old maid. Wonderful, wonderful human being that I met in the hospital. She was a nurse. Oh, she's a retired nurse now. And another one of our nursing friends, we were all over there for a party, and the other nurse had brought her two boys. And her youngest boy says to his mom, I see angels. She's surrounded by angels.
Wow.
I'm like, wow. And I think her life has been dedicated to helping everybody else.
Right.
So I truly think the child saw her with angels.
Well, and children are more how do you say it? They're more open,
Receptive.
receptive to the other side, which I don't know. I think children can see a whole lot. They just don't know how to express it or explain it.
Without adults thinking they're just crazy kids.
Yeah.
But like
Well,
go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
oh, sorry. Well, remember I told you about the cousin or nephew or whatever he was I had?
Right.
So the story with him is after we had this talk about, do people die better with some kind of belief system, he wanted to be baptized. And so our chaplain baptized him. And I don't know if it was that night or a few nights later, he had a brother that was a police officer, and he was getting closer to the time for him to go. And so his brother was spending the night there, and the brother had a friend with him who was another police officer. And I don't know if I have all the facts straight, but they were all asleep, and it was early morning hours. And they heard this awful screeching sound. And of course, they get up and they run to his room. And as they're running down the hallway, now, mind you, there's the mom, the dad, the brother, and the friend. Something flies by them and you screaming. And then they go in there and he's gone, but he's peaceful. And they tell the story all the time.
Wow.
It was like he had some kind of a demon or a spirit that wasn't nice.
Right.
And for whatever reason, it left. It was not happy.
Right.
Okay, so let's just say he passed.
Uh-huh.
As he passed, he noticed as he left his body, there's something negative in this house, and I am not going to allow it to live here. What are the chances of that?
There's always that chance.
Yeah. And it may not have been him. It may have been God or, angels or,
Right.
you know.
Could have been any kind of a spirit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cleanse that house,
Right.
He saw it as he went to the other side,
Right.
and is not going to let his family be nuisanced or subject his family to a negative entity.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
I totally would believe that.
Yeah.
Now, has so when you would see these patients and they would say, "Hey, you don't see that person next to you," and you acknowledge them, has anything like ever like tethered themselves or itself to you, and you bring it home and see something?
No, I can't say that's ever happened.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
But I have a question because it goes back to earlier.
Oh,
Have you ever, okay, from all your experience, and you know when the patient is just like holding on, not for themselves, but for family, have you ever told the family to just let one go and that would help this person transition?
what do you mean let one go?
Like you know how the family they can't accept it. They don't want to see their loved one pass, and they hold all these things inside, and they just don't want to let that person go. Have you ever told the family member, "Hey, just let them go"? And then with that, have you ever seen someone just transition once that was granted?
Yes. Actually, there's both sides of that coin. The loved one that's holding on and said, "Please don't leave me, please don't leave me." Then you have to have the talk with them. You know, look, they're going to go whether you want them to or not. And why would you want them to hold on for you if they're in pain or agony or whatever? And some people will be mad at you for saying that, and some will say, "You're absolutely right. I need to tell them they can go." And then they do, and then the person does pass.
Right.
Or you have the other scenario where they're saying they're sitting vigil at the bedside. We don't want mom or dad or whoever to die alone. We're going to sit here. We're going to be here the whole time. They get up to go use the restroom or get a glass of water, and that person passes away. I truly believe that person's waiting for them to leave so they don't have to, their loved one didn't have to see it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You see that a lot too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then also, what about the patient? You think the patient sometimes need to be told to just let go or just forgive this person?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting you should use that word forgive because that comes up quite often,
Hmm.
whether it's a child who needs to forgive a parent or a parent who needs to forgive a spouse or something to that. And once they do that, it seems like everything is so much better and you can see the release. I sat at my dad's bedside and he looked as if he was, having a conversation that wasn't pleasant with someone. But the minute that it all went away, you could just see the whole transformation on his face. It was like, okay, now we're all at peace.
Yeah.
And
Emotion.
and I always go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I don't want to cut you off.
I always kid everybody that was my mom probably giving him hell for getting involved with this other woman.
Oh yeah. Well, that'll do
I
it.
mean, after she was gone,
Right.
but
Right.
Right.
because she
Right.
didn't turn out to be a very nice lady. But
Oh. Um.
I said, and after that conversation, they got over it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would imagine.
Yeah. What did that feel like for you when you sat and watched your dad pass? What type of emotion can you remember that it's just implanted in your mind?
Well, it's actually kind of funny because I sat there and I was expecting it. And, I've seen all the different things that happen when someone dies. So, but we would think he'd be gone and then he'd take a deep breath. And this went on for hours. So when he finally took that last breath, I waited probably 30 minutes to call the nurse. And then she came in and she says really loudly, "Mr. Gee," and shakes him. And I just started laughing. And I I don't know why, but it was like, oh my God, please don't wake him up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's taking too long to go already.
Right.
Right.
But and my friend that was sitting with me, she kind of grabbed me and was holding me. She goes, "Oh, she's just very, 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 you know, tearful." in essence, I was laughing, but the nurse didn't know I was laughing.
Right.
So yeah,
Are you the only sibling?
no,
Okay.
I have, uh, well, it's yours, mine, ours. My mother was married 3 times.
Mhm.
So I have my brother and sister from her first marriage, then me from her second marriage, and then 2 brothers from her third marriage. He had 2 boys
Oh, okay.
Right.
from a previous marriage.
Yeah.
And then,
But that was the dad that I grew up.
oh,
Right.
okay.
Okay.
That was the hunting father, correct?
Yes, he was a great dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Did he have any? Were you well into your career during his passing?
Oh yes,
So did he have any
yes.
questions for you?
No, he was a man's man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me one of your fondest hunting stories with your father.
I think it would have to be the fishing story. I was 9 and we were on the Lake of the Ozarks and we were in a cave. And he grew up in Missouri, so he knew that lake like the back of his hand. And he loved to catfish. So we were in this cave, and my dad was one of those people that you did not talk when you were fishing.
Right.
So I always took a book. And again, I was 9 years old and I saw this lime green snake and I was just mesmerized by the snake. He was on the wall in the cave. And I'm watching the snake and he slithers off the wall and he gets in the water and he starts coming to the boat. Now I know, he might be poisonous, but I didn't want to interrupt my dad because he doesn't like you to talk to him when he's fishing. So I said, Dad, he goes, huh? I said, are lime green snakes poisonous? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, it's climbing up the side of the boat. Of course, he starts hitting it with the oar. We get home and he tells my mom, damn kid, let's a snake come in the boat. He said, well,
Yeah.
you don't like to be bothered when you're fishing?
Yeah.
So,
How dare you listen to me, kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about when he's teaching you how to hunt? Like what do you remember?
Well, it was again, I was 9 years old and we were in Utah. And the people that we stayed with, he was a taxidermist, a gunsmith, and a physician, the man, Harry. And he was he didn't like kids. And I wanted to go fishing. And he said, only Indians can fish this time of year. And this creek, there was a creek that ran through the backyard. It was a beautiful place.
Mhm.
And I'm 9 years old, so I don't know there's a whole bunch of different kinds of Indians, but I know that I'm part Indian. I said, well, I'm part Indian. So I figured I could fish. He goes, no, you have to be blah, 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 blah. But I'm a persistent little kid. So I said to him, well, okay, you can't fish with a fishing bowl. Can you fish with a net? No. I said, well, can you fish with a spear? No. I said, well, how about if I catch them with my hands? And he said, kid, if you can catch those fish with your hands, go ahead. Well, my dad was brick racing. So I went up the creek and I got a bunch of boulders and I made a little pool with the boulders, chased the fish into my little pool and threw them out on shore. So I came back with about 7 trout and he was fit to be tied. And my dad told him, look, you told her she could catch them with her hands. So then I think the man decided he liked me. So he made me a 22 long rifle.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And again, 9. So same day. So they set up this target and they showed me how to hold the gun and to shoot it. Well, I had my thumb in the wrong place. So the pin got me, when it went
Mm-hmm.
squished my thumb, but I hit the bullseye. And so Harry, he was like, dang. And because Harry was a taxidermist, he said, okay, I'm going to give you this gun. Now you go rattlesnake hunting and bring me back some rattlesnakes. So every year I would go up there and go rattlesnake hunting and bring him back a bunch of rattlesnakes for him to make into belts and hat bands and what have you.
Wow.
And to this day, I have never missed with that rifle.
What?
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. So you're a
Yeah.
regular old Ann Oakley.
That's what I tell everybody. Do you know that Annie Oakley missed once in her entire life and it was on purpose to save face for her husband?
Whoa.
Are you serious? That's love right there. That's love.
And funny
That's love.
because where I'm at, I'm really close to Aunt Sonia, where she's buried and where she's from in Ohio.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad that's kind of strange in itself.
Yeah, I still want to get out there and videotape that.
Right.
And do you know she never wore pants? She always wore
That's
skirts.
right.
Yeah.
Even while riding horses, she's always in the skirt. And they have a monument up over next to it, I believe, and it shows a great picture of her. Yeah,
Yep.
she was a real cowgirl.
She really was.
Right.
She really, really was. Yeah,
Um, Trish, I got another question for you.
sure.
Because we're on the
Back on track.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, no, I like taking
Yeah, we
side
could.
tracks like
There's
that.
some things we
Yeah,
just want to know.
yeah.
But do you think that we as society should be teaching ourselves more about death instead of making it so taboo and morbid and no one wants to talk about it? Do you think we should, so we can become comfortable in our end stages? Should we promote that more in schools and in our own homes?
I definitely believe that. As a matter of fact, for a couple of years, I was a mentor at Apple Valley High School, mentoring some of the students that were going into the healthcare professions. And so I always did a hospice talk during that. And yes, there is oh gosh, my sister gave me the book. It's actually written by an Indian doctor from India who talks about how we as society do exactly that. We don't embrace the death and dying part of everything.
Right. And it's funny because we are, I can't say everyone because there's people like us who, I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I don't have the fear of death anymore because of my particular situation, but I feel there's a lot of people out there that have these anxieties and these concerns and these worries because no one really sat down and talked to them about it. Like they're so willing to live life, but when it comes to death, we're all accepting of it. No one's running around freaking out going, "Oh, I might die. I might die." So, I mean, we're all
Right.
comfortable. We know it's a part of human life, but when it comes around to being something of conversation, no one really wants to talk about it.
They don't. And in the field of hospice and palliative care, mostly in the hospice side, which of course is palliative care as well, but the biggest issue that I run into is people don't want to take morphine. They think the minute you come on hospice, you're going to give them morphine and kill them.
Hmm.
And that's not at all what we do. Some people never have morphine on hospice. It depends. We often use it not just for pain management, but your end stage heart disease or lung disease. One of the side effects of morphine is that it dilates the blood vessels. So, in doing that, it provides better oxygenation, better circulation, because the blood is what carries the oxygen. So, if you're dilating those blood vessels and lessening that burden on the heart, the heart is what pumps the blood through the lungs. So if it slows it down and it beats harder, obviously you're going to get better oxygenation. And those are drops. They're in and out of the system in a couple of hours. So we're not giving people morphine to do them in.
Hmm.
That's a fallacy. But a lot of people still have that mentality.
And it's just like the comfort, right? Isn't it just,
Yeah.
to help the transition?
Well,
Uh,
that's what hospice is all about, is to help you die with dignity
right. And
and comfortable.
yeah, and I even hate to say the word. You probably agree with this. Death is it's like a relevant word because you don't die.
It is.
Why do we use such things that we don't know? I mean,
And hold them dear to us too.
yeah, and
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
them.
yeah.
So instead of like, and this goes back to we should be teaching ourselves this. It's not a death process. It's a transition.
Yeah.
You're transitioning into probably your higher self, your soul. Um, Death seems so finite. Don't you agree?
I do. And we used use the word expiration or expire.
Hmm.
And I had a patient tell me one time, she goes, he's not a carton of milk. He's not
Right.
going to expire.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah.
I said, I am so sorry. And so I started using the word die.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, you know
You
what
know,
term I like to use, especially when I had to talk to um, the families of the past. Um, I've always used passed away
Right.
yeah, we
because
use that quite often.
yeah,
Yeah.
in my mind, it means that that soul has passed to the other side.
Right.
And there is no test, there is no fail. You are going to
Right,
pass. You
Yeah.
know, um,
right.
and I think after, geez, 10 or 15 years, and you let me know if this hits at home in any way with you. It may or may not, but my last call, uh, and it wasn't even a call. My last few days on an ambulance turned out to be the day I decided I'm never going to go back into an ambulance again. My partner and I, his name is Lucas Brightman. We've been partners for a long time. We've seen a lot together. And we were leaving Long Beach Memorial, and we were going northbound on a street called Paramount in the city of Artesia. And we're sitting at a light, and Bob, I call him Bob, that's the nickname I call him, and no one else calls him that except for his very, very close friends. Bob looks at a motorcycle rider headed westbound. He stops at a light, and I look at him too. There's no reason to look at this motorcycle rider, mind you. And he looks at us. He looks dead at us. In fact, he raised his visor up and looked at us. And Bob will confirm this story. We're going to have him on the podcast. Then
Oh, good.
he closes the visor down, and then he makes a right turn. He is now headed northbound. Our light turns from red to green, and we didn't say, well, that was funny. We just, it was what it was. We start heading off north. We're following maybe a half mile behind him, and all of a sudden, this guy wants to gun it, pop a wheelie. Well, while he's wheeling, his light turned red, and the eastbound traffic started to go. Right when he let the wheel down, a Honda Accord blindsided him. The impact was so bad that it looked like someone strapped a grenade on his bike.
Oh, my goodness.
And he completely just vanished. Bike parts everywhere. And as I'm driving, I can remember my partner's face. One, he looked at me, I looked at him, and we had this look like, I think it was more of a look of, we know why he did it at that point. Because, and I think, this is what I think, in his mind, there's an ambulance right there. Here's a chance to pull a trick I've always wanted to pull. And if something goes wrong, at least there's a medical professional right behind me. I'm only thinking, I don't know why that popped into my mind, but it's almost like the dude told us this is what I'm going to do. I only know certain things like this because him and I used to ride the hell out of dirt bikes, and we used to get really crazy. And if I seen securities out there, I would even press the envelope even more. So we turn the lights on. We turn the lights on immediately, and I'm swearing up and down like, this mother effer, why did he have to go do this? And Bob's like, oh, that was so stupid. We get out, we grab our gurney, our trauma bags, and I mean, Lucas' arms are full of stuff. My arms are full of stuff, and we got our gurney. We get in front of the ambulance, and we're like, well, where is he? And we couldn't find the body. Someone come running around and saying, he's over there, he's over there. He was 40 feet further down the highway or down the street. The impact was so great, one of his shoes was on a residence roof. And there was a shoe somewhere else. The lady driving the car is going bananas.
Oh,
She's frantic. We can't do anything with that. So we're like, okay, let's hurry up and get there. We hurry up and we find this dude. He still has his helmet on. Helmet is fractured. He's missing all of his feet wear. The impact was so bad, his shoes and socks came off, and his pants was halfway down his waist. And we raised the visor up, and then I'm starting to notice that there is priapism on the midsection. So already that's telling me this is not good, okay? Bob starting off beating on his chest. We couldn't even get an oral airway. That's how bad the situation was. Somebody else called 911 as well, and we're beating his heart. Had If Bob would have took any break or rest from beating on this man's heart, I'm sure we would have lost him. The fire department rolls up. Another medic says, keep beating. I mean, Bob is pumping this man's heart for at least 15 minutes. And if you never had to pump a human heart for 15 minutes, the exertion that comes over a
Oh,
man
it's
is ridiculous.
yeah, it's like
It was,
none other.
and it was a hot day, and we're
Yeah.
both taking turns, and I'm bagging them. And so the medics, they take over. They try their best to stabilize him. And off to Long Beach Memorial they go. Our shirts are covered in blood. We get everything back in the ambulance. I don't even take off from the scene right away. We pull over on the side of the road, and we talked about what had happened. In my mind, I had made up, I am never doing this job again. Like, there was a line I crossed that once you see so much of this, there's no,
Unseeing it.
right, but who's going to walk you out?
Right.
Who tells you you've seen enough and this is it?
And this is how you deal with
So
it.
the next
Yeah.
day we came back on shift. And I'm telling Bob, I'm going to say bye to all the nurses, the CNAs, the ER doctors. I want to say bye to Dr. Skinner, one of my favorite ER doctors. And for some reason, it pops in my head, and even Bob, we go, why don't we drive to Long Beach Memorial and go see how that patient is doing? And so he was in ICU, and we didn't know, but his parents were there. And so his parents are saying, were you guys the one that were first responding? Were you the first on scene? I was like, absolutely. And the father, he goes, well, I'm his father. Can you tell me exactly what happened? And I ran him through the story exactly as I ran you guys through the story.
Mhm.
And he goes, that's funny because, man, I get emotional telling this story. But he goes, that's funny. We live right around the corner. He's been
Oh my goodness.
he's been practicing these tricks for weeks. And we told him, stop. The guy was 23 years old.
Mhm.
Stop doing this, or go somewhere where it's safe. Literally, where he got hit, if you would have took a 200-yard walk and turned left, his house is right there. So
Wow.
his old man and his wife said, or his father and his mother said, thank you so much for being here and giving us that bit of information, because no one saw
What happened?
what happened. And
Wow.
the woman that was driving the car, she completely forgot everything there was about the accident. That's how
Traumatic.
traumatic it was
Yeah.
for her.
Well, good for her, because no one should have to remember that.
Right. And so I just remember giving a big hug. I don't know why I went back, but I'm glad I did. They were so relieved to know how he passed. And his mother said, did he say anything? And I said, ma'am, no, I don't even think, he was consciously able to do anything.
Right.
And so just that little bit of closure was everything. That's when I knew my time in that field was over.
Right.
So is there anything that is there a line you cross to let you know this is it? I can't do it no more.
There probably is. I haven't crossed it yet.
Mm.
That's
So,
why I'm still working.
right.
Right.
So what was the worst that you have seen?
Well, I had a young man, he was 21 or 22, and this was, maybe a couple of years into my career as a hospice nurse, and he was dying from AIDS back then. And he was probably the most angelic looking young man I have ever seen, or person,
Mhm.
period, in my life. He was mad at the world because he had this disease. And oftentimes he was out by their pool sitting on a lounge chair. And, he certainly, he had all the sores and things like that, but he was very, very mad at the world. And he was very difficult to talk with. I don't think I ever really got close to him. He wouldn't let me. I tried. And I think he was only with me for about a week or two at the most. And the day he died, the transformation of what he looked like to when he was alive to what he looked like when he was dead was like the difference between an angel and a devil.
Wow.
What?
And to the point, and I'm not queasy, I'm not scared of things. I didn't want to touch him.
Yeah.
That's how bad he looked. And I thought, I have never seen this in my career ever.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of death. And I mean, when I tell you that he was angelic looking, I've never seen anybody look like that since.
Mm-hmm.
But the day he died, and within a matter of minutes, it was unbelievable. And I'm like, I'm not touching him.
You're right.
So what was physically, what was it like? Was he super veiny? Was his eyes jet black? Did he look like he had some sort of makeup on? Was the skin color a certain way?
Mm. You know, I worked really hard at getting that image out of my brain.
Right. Oh, I
Okay,
don't
yeah.
want to rekindle
Yeah,
that.
if you don't want to revisit that, we don't have to go down that
Yeah.
route.
But I remember the eyes were like black. That's what I remembered mostly. And they were open. But it was like this look of hatred, which I have never seen in another human being that's passed.
Mhm.
Right.
And I don't know if the disease was just so far advanced inside his body that when he finally did go, this is what happened. But I'm telling you, it was, for me, it was scary.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not easily scared.
Right.
Right.
And then as far as we know, he held on to that anger all the way through.
All the way through.
Right. Oh, wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you could be totally mad at leaving this world and not having accomplished what you wanted to accomplish.
Right.
Or, I mean, but for, forgiving himself, I mean, he's the one that actually contracted it, the disease. Do you know how he came about contracting the disease?
I do.
Okay. So, yeah, I would like to believe he was not willing to look at it as his fault, not his fault, but of his own creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
just didn't want to accept that he had a hand in it.
Right. Right. And, I tried to get him to open up about how he got it, how he felt about it, and he wouldn't have any of it. He was like, do what you have to do and leave.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old do you think he was again?
Maybe 21 or 22.
So he's young. Yeah.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and I can get that. He feels like he's been shortchanged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Now tell me this. When you see all these commercials with St. Jude's and children who have cancer and they're terminally ill, they're not gonna pull through. Have you ever taken care of these kids? Do they go home? Do they stay in the hospital?
I had one. I don't do children for this reason. The child was only maybe at most a month old and had a brain tumor and was going to die within days. And they lived out in Pinion Hills. And I got called out, and the baby had passed away. And mom was holding the baby. And I let her hold the baby. And, I stayed there for a while. And then I said to her, would you like me to hold the baby? And we were waiting for the coroner to come because in those days the coroners came out.
Yep.
And she said, yes, please. And so I took the baby from her, and this big burly guy walks in. He rolls up on a Harley, and he's got long hair and a beard, and he looks like somebody you wouldn't want to tangle with. And he says, give me my kid. I'm like, here you go.
Yeah.
So I gave him the kid, and he took off on the motorcycle with the kid. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to tell the coroner? And about 30 minutes passed by, and I knew the coroner was going to roll up any minute. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to get in so much trouble. And pretty soon I hear the Harley, and he drives back in, walks in the house, tears running down his face. See if I can get through this without crying.
Take your
Take
time.
your time.
Don't you worry about it. It's okay.
That's why I don't do kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I don't blame you. It's tough. It's tough stuff.
Yeah.
This story I know
He's,
will help some people.
yeah, well, he said, I promised my son I'd take him for a horse ride.
Yeah.
Now, did he make it? Clearly, he didn't make that the point when he took the kid, but
No,
how did you feel when you said, okay, here, take the baby? That must be a validation that you were like, I am glad he got a chance to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I'm the coroner showing up, you know, I'll tell that coroner all kind of things. if that's what I can only imagine if that was me, you know, and I'm
Mhm.
picking up my son or daughter and I didn't get a chance to give him a horseback ride. I'm taking my baby and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And kudos for you not putting up a fight for someone that strong in grief. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I totally go ahead. You're going to say something.
No,
I I
I
I
wasn't.
I,
When,
I so understand why you don't want to do children anymore, but you have to be one of the most, and not just you, but this family. You guys are so battle hardened, and you do this job for those of us who can't do it. Just speaks volumes
Right.
on your spirit.
Yeah.
You are a very strong spirit,
Yeah.
and we want to thank you for what you do. Hell, our subscribers are telling me right now, we thank you for what you do.
Right.
I mean, not a lot of people can do that. And thank you for all the people that you transitioned.
Yeah. And stick with it.
Yeah.
And know that, see, Trish, I think there's something in you. You were somewhere else before you were on earth. And you knew the importance of this. You may have forgotten the totality of the importance,
Correct.
but you knew the importance of this. And there was no way in hell you were going to leave us humans to suffer our last days by ourselves and not having comfort with you, people like you, and our families. And, you know, I think it's one of
but
the unsung heroes are nurses like you guys. In fact, all nurses, but those of you who subject yourself to such grief. I just don't know if I don't even think thank you is enough.
Yeah.
I think doing things like this so people can hear your story, so people can understand what we're going through in this life is for a reason. And there are people here dedicated to seeing you out, and they have no problem doing that.
well, you should thank your mother as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you should already know she's included. When we speak to Trish, for all you guys watching, it's like talking to mom.
Right.
They go hand in hand. The dynamic
We
duo.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the
Yeah.
dynamic
are.
duo.
We are.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
I
often
mean,
go out together.
Yeah.
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 I mean, but you said earlier that you were privileged to hear stories that no one will ever hear of people and their legacies. And these people
Right.
lived in the early 1900s. Okay.
Yes, yes.
What were some of the stories that they told you that stuck with you? Like, I got to tell people this.
Well, there's just so many. I don't know that I could name just one. I'm kind of a girl of the earth. I kind of like to, when I was in high school, they came out with this series of books called Foxfire,
Hmm.
where they went around the world and they asked all these people, how did you do this before modern technology? How did you manage to do this or make this or what have you? And it's how these people survive with next to nothing, how they made soap out of ash from the fireplace, how they knew the seasons and when to plant and things like that. And I was always into all that. So I remember when I first moved up here to the desert, coming from LA, of course, we can plant all year long, kind of. But up here, we get kind of more of the seasons. So, and there's certain plants that we can't plant. And I had a little lady, Jenny, and she told me, um, oh no, it's too early to plant your garden. And I thought, she knows what she's talking about, right? And I planted this huge garden. It was doing really wonderful. And sure enough, we got a frost. And she had told me we always get one frost right around Easter. And to this day, it happens every time.
Wow.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So, and it's, it's kind of like I told you before, I'm like a Labrador. I live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I've always remembered that. And, they talk about when they were fighting in the war and how, or when people had rheumatic heart fever and tuberculosis and all of that stuff, smallpox, just so many things.
Yeah. But and that's just us reflecting on their past, but to them it was a
Right.
way of life. It was like, this is how we
Yes, it
do it.
was.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
normal. This is how we do it. And I'm sure they reflected back
Yeah.
onto people like in the medieval times. There's like, well, how did they do it? It's just crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so
They-
go ahead.
I was just going to say they endured things I wouldn't think of enduring
Right.
Right.
or think about,
Did you ever
They
hear?
just did it.
Did you ever hear a story being told to you on someone's deathbed, and you're like, "That is amazing," and can I tell this to other people? Because no one's going to know how you lived and what you experienced.
Yes, and we've from early on, we've encouraged people to write down their stories.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I see on the commercials now some guy that says, "Send me your stories, and then I'll send you a book of them to give to your kids."
Right.
We encouraged that way back when,
Yeah.
Right.
or videos. We actually had a group of professionals that came out and did videos, much like we're doing now, so that their children could see it and hear it.
Oh,
Right.
that's
And
amazing.
yeah, this is our book. This is
Yeah.
what we like. Instead of writing it down, we do this podcast because everything you're
Right.
saying is so validating to us, because we always say you don't have to be rich and famous or have all the notoriety. Everybody has a story they want to tell.
Right.
And we are so intrigued and so interested in other people's story
Right.
because they're great stories. And I would
They are.
really hate for that to disappear.
Yeah.
Right.
I would love for other people to hear that funny story, your hunting story,
Right.
with the snake coming to the boat. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
That was an aspect in your life that I could reflect on in my own mind and paint a picture to where you were at that time and go, that's a cool little deal there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get along well with snakes.
Yeah. I don't know anyone that really does either, except for those who love snakes. Yeah. I don't like snakes.
I was walking along a berm again in Utah.
Mhm.
There were a lot of snakes, rattlesnakes there. And the berm, there was a 6-foot drop into the creek, and then there was like a little irrigation ditch. And there was a little bush that was there. And I was with my friend, and we both had our 22s. And she was a little bit longer leg than I did. She stepped over the bush and kept walking. I stepped over the bush, and a water moccasin wrapped around my ankle.
Ooh.
And I know how aggressive water moccasins are. And I stood stock still. And I said to my friend, "Chris, could you please turn around and shoot the snake off my foot?" And she turns around, her eyes get big, and she goes, "What if I miss?" I said, "Don't miss, just shoot it, please, before it bites me." And about the time she raised her rifle, it unraveled itself and fell off into the creek. I'm like, "Oh God,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done for today."
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That was a tense moment right now
Yeah,
for me.
yeah,
I
yeah.
was living that
Yeah.
again with you.
Yeah. I always say when people tell me their story about them, to you it may seem like I've known you for an hour, but you've allowed me to know you for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've walked through some things with you.
Yeah.
You know?
And I can relate
Okay.
with that snake story because we
Yeah.
were in not El Cajon, but we were close to Temecula, and we were out just clay shooting, and we were walking back up this hill, and I hear this rattle. Well, literally 5 feet away from me is this baby rattlesnake.
Oh my God.
And it was in the striking position. And I know
Ooh.
baby rattlesnakes can't control their venom.
Right.
They go all or nothing. And so I had my shotgun in my hand, and just natural reflexes was to point and shoot. Right at the time I shot, in my mind, the snake was coming at me. Now, I don't know if it was, but in my mind, I saw the snake coming at me. And I shot and I killed it. And I thought to myself, Oh my God. I'm never coming out here again.
I remember that day vividly
Yeah.
because we were with
Two other
two other
buddies.
friends,
And
Dietrich and Steve.
yeah, and he cut the head off,
Yeah.
right? And then he buried the head. Did he bury the
Yeah.
head?
All I know is I heard, "Ah!"
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Scream now, shoot right after.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he cut the tail off and saved the tail. I wonder if he still has it.
He might.
Yeah,
I
but
gotta ask him.
I thought to myself,
Yeah.
I was a goner for sure. My
Yeah.
life flashed before my eyes.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I can relate with that.
So we're gonna start winding down on the podcast. So there's a few questions I'm gonna
Okay.
ask you still yet.
Right?
One, I wanted to ask this earlier, and it was oh my God, now I'm having a brain fart.
See,
hate
I love it
do
when
that.
that's why I write my questions down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Until I could think of it again. Who taught you to love?
Ooh, that is a hard question.
Oh, we get the same response from a lot of people. You take your time though.
I think everyone.
Yeah. Everyone meaning like outside of family and friends and your mother and parents and
I think everybody I've run across taught me how to love.
is there a particular moment where you knew instantly that this was love at a young age?
No, but I'll tell you, I had a little lady again out in Pinion Hills,
Mm-hmm.
Virginia, who was dying. And, as I say, I'm daddy's girl and I'm kind of rough and tumble. So we were not real huggy, touchy, feely.
Right.
But I knew they loved me. I mean, I don't know why, but I knew it. Anyway, when she was dying, her daughter got in the bed with her and just held her. And I thought, gosh, that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I need to do that, you know?
Right.
I was just astounded because I was not raised that way, but I thought that's just incredibly kind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Um,
would say everything and everybody taught me to love.
That's awesome.
that is awesome.
That gives me some hope for humanity yet.
Right.
Thank you for that, Trish.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you have any kids?
I have a son,
Okay. How old is he?
39.
Okay. Is he doing the same thing? What is he into?
Well, he went into the military
Mm-hmm.
and he was in the Marines for 12 years and he came out of the Marines and they actually a couple of years ago moved to Texas and bought a house back there. And he works with a nonprofit organization that gets the veterans their benefits.
Oh, we're
Okay.
going to have a nice conversation with him if he's willing to do a podcast. Trish. I just love my
Yeah.
little worker bees out there doing good for the souls that are out there.
Yeah.
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 Oh, he does. He's got a very loving heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, look where he comes
I,
from.
I was just going to
mean,
say, look who created this
Yeah.
loving heart. Jesus.
Well, I don't know. You can ask him that.
Yeah. I'm sure he's going to have great things to say about mom.
Okay, so I remembered the question. Has anyone ever confessed anything on their deathbed, like murder or
Oh, wow.
mischief, or I mean, it's just something that I
Yeah.
really wanted to ask, and maybe somebody sat there and was like, "Wait a minute, I don't want to hear this."
Yeah.
They have confessed things. I don't think I've had anybody confess a murder per se. They've alluded to it,
Right.
Right.
but they have confessed things. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah. I don't have to know the details. I
Yeah.
just wondered that,
Yeah.
do you get that type of thing?
We do, because sometimes it's easier to tell a stranger than it is to tell someone you love.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And do you think that's a confession because they don't have a priest there, or they're just like, hey, I don't want to die with this?
Yeah, I think it's both. It's an unburdening of a burden that they're carrying and they want to give it up.
Yeah.
Right.
And I always look towards the positive for things like that and tell them, you've paid the price by owning it for all these years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've been forgiven.
Yeah. You just judged yourself, and you're doing this to yourself.
That was your own hell you put
Yeah.
yourself through.
Yeah.
And
And
that's what most people do.
Yeah.
right,
We're all guilty of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're
There's
harder on ourselves than most people
we
are.
are, which
right.
goes back to my whole point of there's no God or universe needing to judge you. It accepts you for who you are.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job of judging yourself good enough.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Sometimes I often wonder, is this like our I don't want to say hell, but is this our determining stage as to where we go next? Do we repeat the cycle, or have we learned it truly within ourselves and now we move on?
I don't have all the answers. I know that there's something else out there. I've been told before I when I first started working up here, there was a nurse um, that said to me, "You're a very old soul,"
Mm,
and I'm like, "Okay." And she believed in reincarnation
right.
and that you keep coming back till you get it right.
Hmm.
And I thought, oh well, if I'm an old soul, then I must be getting it right, closer to right,
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. One would
um,
hope.
right.
Right.
And then I had a man that I took care of who had been a Indian trader. He had an outpost and he traded with the Indians. And he knew, I think, around 4 different dialects of the Native Americans. And when I first came out to greet him as the hospice nurse, he tells me, "You're one who walks in truth."
Mm,
And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
right. Because I'm a big proponent of reincarnation.
And then when a native tells you something, you know, they actually name themselves after something tangible or physical that they can
Hmm.
see or they witnessed, you know. So when
Right.
when a native, and people may think I'm weird for thinking this, I think natives can see different realms and planes than we are unable to comprehend
Or forgot.
or forgot.
It's very interesting. My mother had a nickname for me that included the word bear. I
Hmm.
won't say the rest of it because I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But uh, a lot of Native Americans have what they call totems or uh, a spiritual thing that allows them to be who they are.
Hmm.
And it was very interesting to me. I bought these cards from a store one time, and it says it'll show you which totem is yours. You know, you do this, 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 and this. So I followed all the rules, and I did it, and it came out as a bear.
Hmm.
I thought, oh, I'm like, okay, we're doing it just for fun. But I did it about 4 times, and each time it came out as the bear. And I thought that was interesting
Yeah.
Wow. So you're getting
because that
all.
would be my totem,
Yeah. So you're
my
getting
spiritual guide.
Yeah.
exactly. So you're getting all this validation. So I'm assuming at one point you had to have stood back and go, wow, this is all starting to add up.
Yeah.
Well, my great grandmother was full blooded Cherokee, and she came off the reservation in Oklahoma, and she was 101 or 102 when she died. But I remember asking her one time, "Hi, Grandma, think about this. You've seen the first stagecoach, the first car, the first plane, the first this," and I said, "What do you think of all that?" And she was very much native. She took her a while to answer the question because they always think before they speak.
Right.
And she looked at me. She said, "White man's ways."
What?
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's not our doing.
No, and she also, when we were kids and we'd go and stay with her and my grandpa, who was a redheaded, green-eyed Irishman, she would peel fruits and vegetables, and she would put it in a little bowl or pot or something, and she'd take it outside and bury it. And I asked her, "Why do you do that?" She says, "You should always give back to the earth what you take from it." So from a very young age, I've always had a kinship to my Native American side.
Yeah.
Have you had any dreams as being a bear, or any dreams where you're like, oh my God, that was real. Everything in me says this is real.
I have one that was a repeat 3 times in my life. I'm standing in a beautiful meadow with a long flowing white dress on, My hair is long, which it usually is. Um, and the sun is shining, the rays are touching the grass, and this beautiful white horse gallops up, kneels down. I get on and ride away on the sun's rays
Oh, that is beautiful.
Like, and you've had this 3 times.
3 times.
Now, was there anything? Sorry, I just had a dream like this. We had it on the podcast. We haven't released it yet. Was there anything different each time you experienced the dream?
Other than the day after the dream was like a great day.
Right.
I don't remember the particulars, but I remember it was just a feeling of exultation.
Was,
Right.
was there a destination that you felt like you were going to?
No.
How about the colors? Were they more vibrant? Where it was
Oh, definitely. It was like a lime green meadow, and that sun was like orange and yellow. And yeah, it was definitely very vibrant.
Now, do you recall hearing anything or smelling anything?
Didn't hear a thing.
Wow, but you got that 3 times in a row.
Well, not in a row, but 3 times in my
Oh,
life so
okay.
far.
Yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I've had it 3 nights in a row, the same dream, over and over. I thought at one point, okay, either this ends or something's going to come out of my lawn and meet and greet me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to spoil it for the viewers who are going to watch the podcast, but
Did you feel anything when, like, in the dream? Could you feel the horse's mane or the grass beneath your feet? I'm curious about that.
I don't recall, but I don't think I did. But I dream in color, and I dream often.
Right. Me
right.
too.
Yeah, I know I dream in color.
Yeah.
Okay, no one knows about this but me and my wife. Not even he knows about this. And I'm going to share with everybody because you have been just a beautiful person, you.
Oh, thank you.
I had so it wasn't the ear-ringing event I experienced. And I know you know about these events that we've been having. I think you know.
Yeah, it was during the podcast. Yeah, I talked about it.
Okay,
In the podcast.
so it wasn't one of those, but there was this entity there. I couldn't tell you what it looked like. It's just I knew there was a entity there, and it was unlike anything you could ever describe. The room is dark, it's black, and it whispered things to me. It said, "You're taking this too serious. Who are you?" It laughed at me. It said, "You're a joke." And it kept saying, like, "You're taking this too serious. Reach out more." Yeah, that sound you hear right now, yeah, that sound you're gonna create a year from now.
Mm.
And I was appalled because I'm heavily into music. I woke up, I remembered every little thing, and my wife will tell you that whole day. I remember clearly. I went in the kitchen and I was gonna go work out, and I sat down, and she looked at me and she said, "What's wrong with you? You look different. You sound different." I said, one of the most amazing things happened to me. And she goes, "What?" I go, "I experienced something that I don't think I'll ever experience again. And from here on off, my life is changed." I woke up mentally with this clarity. Like there could never be anything that would disappoint me ever again. And
Wow.
no matter what I thought about situations with my family, my kids, my friends, it all seemed like it, not like it's a joke, but it all seemed like there is nothing that I could do that will ever be wrong. And I'm taking this life way too serious, and I'm asking all the wrong questions, and I'm tying myself to all the wrong things. And that entity made it seem like, don't forget what you're doing while you're doing it, but you're definitely missing something, and you're just not You're not supposed to take this that serious.
Mm.
And it changed my whole day. I was so vibrant that day.
Mm-hmm.
I was as happy as I could ever remember myself being that day. And that feeling slowly started to fade away.
Yeah.
And it's almost
Oh,
like, I wish I could go back to that day and feel what I felt. It was like this whole body, mind clarity I've
Yeah.
never felt before.
I had that during my experience, but that was my NDE portion. I came back. Well, first, when I was during my near-death experience, I was in this great space, this consciousness, and I was so much bigger than what I thought I could be. But when I came back into my body, I thought there was no way you're going to be able to fit me back into that meat sack. I don't know how I'm supposed to squeeze back into that. I'm more than this. And so when I came back into my body, there was this just like refreshed, energized, charged about me. Like, oh, this is life. It's, it's not serious. I'm taking this way too serious. Everybody's taking this way because I get it now. We're all supposed to have this experience. And then like him, it slowly starts to fade away. But for me, not so much, because the moment I think about where I was at, I get that same freshness. I get that smell. I get that remembrance of where I was. I don't think I could ever shake it. It's going to always be,
right.
With me. But I get how you could have that. But
Yeah.
my whole thing was I had a little depression because, I was in a place that it was all loving. Everything was okay. No more stress and worries and anxieties. And it was just, you're home. You don't have to worry about that earth thing anymore. So when I came back, I had a little acute depression of like, and I love everyone here in the physical plane, my family. I love everybody to death, but that couldn't hold a flame compared to the amount of love I was receiving on the other side. And a big part of me was like, I would love to go back, and I'd be lying if I said, if someone were to appear right now and say, hey, Lamar, would you want to go back? I probably would say, yeah, not even probably. I love you guys to death, but I'd be on my way, and we would finish this conversation when you all joined me there, So I don't know. I don't even know really where I was going with that, but
yeah. But something I said, it struck you.
It was just
Yeah.
one of those things where it, I don't know. I came back a different person too.
Right. And I think these are all like a symptom of everybody's reality.
Yeah.
And the symptoms are, you can't explain them, you feel them.
Right.
And you do your best to explain them.
Yeah. Well, and then with that said,
Oh, we have one more question.
oh, okay, go ahead. What's the question?
Oh, it's two.
Okay.
Who taught you to hate?
Ooh, yeah.
Hate?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think I've really ever hated anything or anybody. That word doesn't really exist for me. Well, I have a strong dislike for certain things, certainly, but I don't know. Again, I'm like a Labrador.
Yeah.
You kick them and they still come back.
Yeah.
I used to own one, so I know all about it.
And I so see that in you. You just like that one lady said, you are an old soul. Is that lady still around by any chance?
She's not.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Last question. Who taught you to fear?
Oh, fear. Wow. I would have to say my mother, because she had no fear. Um, I'll give you an example. We were at Lake Isabella and the brakes went out on the truck and we're going around all these curves and she yells, "Hang on, everybody." And just kept driving around the curves because she knew down at the end there was a sand that she could get into. And we would be hiking, no matter what we'd be doing. We were in Missouri one time and she wanted this piece of driftwood. And I know you know what I'm talking about when when a creek or a river comes into where the lake is, there's a lot of debris there, and that's usually where snakes like to hang out.
Right.
Mhm.
And she says, we were on the pontoon. She says, "Trisha, jump off and go get that piece of driftwood for me." And I looked at her and I said, "Mom, that looks like Snake Haven over there." She says, "That's all right. I'll watch out for the snakes." And I'm like, what? And there was no telling her no. You did not tell my mother no.
Right.
So the things that she would want me to do, no, I don't think so. But I
Right.
did them anyway. So I would have to say it was my mother.
Your mother.
Right.
Okay. I'm kind of regretting the fact that we didn't ask more questions about your mother. And
Huh.
I think we're going to save that for
Yeah.
when we have you on again. I also have a few more questions I would like to ask you, and some of them pertain to your profession, but a lot of them don't.
Right.
And I like to just find the commonality and what we all have in common as human beings.
Right. And then lastly, is there anything you want to that you can say to people that maybe are going through some sort of transition process with a loved one or themselves that may watch this video? Is there anything you can tell them to, make them feel more comfortable about?
Yes. Don't shut yourself off. Accept anybody who wants to come and visit. You may not feel like it, but I guarantee they're going to bring you some hope. Sorry.
No,
No, you're
that's
fine.
okay.
And some peace. Everybody brings to your life something different.
Right. Okay. And with that said, thank you, Trish, so much for sharing those intimate stories. They were just mind blowing for us. We always love the conversation. You've been nothing but great. And then
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah, I love you too.
We love you
Thank
the
you for
most.
what you do for people. I don't even know if a thank you is good enough. I just I bow to you and to those that do what you do.
We're just people too.
Yeah.
I know you are,
But
but you're
you're
the
different.
better of me.
Yes, you are. And with that said,
I don't know about that.
yeah. Well, in our minds.
Yeah.
So let us have that. Yeah. Like the channel
Subscribe.
and ring the bell if you can.
Just ring it.
Also, the Patreon is alive and well. We have to stress it. The bills have to get paid. And you could help us by
Yes.
keeping this channel going.
The winter is going to be ending soon, which means we get back out on the road
And do more interviews.
and we do more field interviews
and more music.
We're getting in contact with those people who they say are so outside the box. You don't want to talk to these people. They're not normal.
Yeah.
We're proven otherwise.
We're going to go find out.
Yeah.
With that said, peace.
Peace.